Let's start the second episode where we'll start seeing how things come together, like the view model and the view controller come together and launch the first screen, which is the search city view controller. So how does it work right now? If you just let's just try running and see what happens, what gets launched right now. Just plain run, because we are just integrated. We just modified the view controller, associated a search view model in that, and we're just launching it from maybe the default setting. So you can just see that things are loading, but it's loading not through the way we are intending it to load, like using a coordinator, but it's loading through the default settings of the view controller, which is happening through, let's say, the main interface. This is what is making it launch. So it has set that view controller as the first view controller to launch. So this is where it is happening. So once you remove this, you will not see that view controller loading anymore. It's still loading. So I'll just go back and see in Scene Delegate, or at least in the project setting, initial view controller. What if you go to the main view controller? That one is the initial view controller. Maybe this will make it not load anymore. Yeah, so now it's a blank screen, white screen. So two things we did here. We got rid of the interface, and then in the main view controller, we just went here and made this as not the initial view controller. So that being done, now we are ready to launch this from the app delegate or scene delegate, which is a new one. Scene delegate and app delegate. This as far as the documentation says, this has happened because iPad OS has come up. So that's the reason we have a segregation between an app delegate and scene delegate. So that's not in the scope right now, but then wherever we are going to launch it right now will be through the scene delegate. We will get to that when we actually start creating the coordinators. So let's start doing that. So this episode is totally for showing how coordinators are going to work, at least the first coordinator, how it is going to work, where we'll load the first view controller there. So we have the view controller, the coordinator. Let's define the first coordinator required. So I'm going to call it as search city coordinator. Search city coordinator. That's my coordinator class. Search city coordinator. That's done. So before even using this, we need to define some base coordinators to it along with some protocols. Let's do that. So coordinator, however it is going to work, is like there will be a base coordinator which is going to have all its child coordinators, which is nothing but all the instances of the views and its dependencies associated to the parent. So for that, we are going to define something to define parent and the child of everything. So let's define something called as a coordinator protocol. Coordinator, and this is going to have child coordinators. Like I said, every screen, if you are actually defining as a module, which will be called as a coordinator, that coordinator can create all the dependencies required for a view controller, let's say, and along with the view model, and then even the services which you need to actually dependency inject to your module. That whole thing will be handled by a coordinator, and it can also start or launch a view controller. So everything will be abstracted within a coordinator. So one coordinator need not expose a view controller to another view coordinator. So it's going to be totally abstracted within these coordinators, and whatever communication has to happen will be happening through some protocols or something. So let's do that, a closure protocol or something. So we have the child coordinator right now, which is actually going to be again a coordinator. So this is the base coordinator protocol, and each child coordinator is also going to implement coordinator protocol itself. Okay, and set. So that's the first thing. So coordinators is going to have all the child coordinators which it requires. Let's say if you need to launch a screen from a parent, a new screen is getting launched, then it has to be added within the child coordinator so that it can actually hold that reference of that child until it is disposed. And then we need to have something to start. Let's say if you want to launch a screen, this is where it happens. You just need to start it where it will actually combine all the dependencies required for a coordinator and then start. Or it can be either a push or a present. So anything can be happening within the start. So we just need to have a base structure to it, the coordinator, which will have all the child coordinators, which is nothing again but an array of coordinator elements, and then a start function. Again, let's extend this protocol to add two functions, which is, one thing is to have add a coordinator to as a child coordinator to this base coordinator. So this is coming as an extension to this. So we don't need to implement it anywhere else. This is where it is going to happen within a protocol instant. Whenever you instantiate, let's say base, if you call this, it's going to come and add it over here itself. So whatever is going to happen is we are going to append the child coordinator in this add function. Nothing major, it's just simple thing. Similarly, we will have a remove function passing a coordinator, again void. Here it's more like removing it. So basically it's like applying a filter if $0 is not equal to coordinator. So this is basically what is happening. So it will set those coordinators as the child coordinators. Okay, so this should be of type class, otherwise it will start asked to mutate. So binary operator cannot be applied on that's a comparison between two objects. That's also done. So these are the basic functions required. Add, remove, we don't need the UI kit, it's just having only coordinators here. So add, remove coordinator here. If it is add, append it. If it is remove, you can either remove it or do an apply on filter on it. So that's done. So this is my protocol. So even before a protocol, we cannot define, we will have a base class to it now. So a base where these things can be implemented. So let me just call that as base coordinator class, base coordinator. It is going to abstract those things. Base, it is implementing coordinator, and then we can implement child coordinators here with empty. The base does not need to have anything, and then we need to have the start function. fatal error, children should implement start. So that's my base coordinator. Now search city can implement that base coordinator, and now we are going to override in this one. We can override the start function. So start, it's going to give me that overriding error, so that's also done. So this is where whole of the thing is going to start. We have the start function, and within this is where we are going to instantiate the view controller and associate everything, and then make that first call to launch this screen. So even before search, okay, let's do this first, and let me just tell you that this is not the first coordinator which will be used to actually launch the application. So let's bring in something more. If I want to instantiate a view controller, then I need to use a storyboard instance and then use that to instantiate that. So for that, I'm going to add a utility now within my view, or maybe I can just keep a shared location where I'm going to just say I'm going to add a class here. It's just a utility class. I'm going to call it storyboardable. This I found something interesting from one of the articles which I was using. I was reading through, where it gave me an option to launch view controllers using these simple protocol which can make your view controllers to be instantiated. So I'm just going to use that here. So I'm also including that credit of wherever I have used it. It is coming from Hacking with Swift. I'm just using that here. This is the credit. If you want to read through, just go to this, how to use the coordinator pattern in iOS apps. There you will see this storyboardable being used there to instantiate. So I'm just including it here. It's nothing but whichever view controller is going to implement this storyboardable, then it exposes a function, static function called instantiate, which will let you instantiate that view controller right from, because I know this is the only storyboard which I'm going to use right now called main.storyboard. So I'm just using that to instantiate. If you have any other storyboard, then maybe you might have to pass it as a instantiate using the name of the storyboard, and then use that to launch it or then instantiate. So this is how I'm including here, which makes it easier now. So whatever I allow to right now do is to go to my view controller. That's what I need to do. Go to the view controller and then implement storyboardable. Nothing, it will not ask anything. It's just implemented. Now as soon as I do this, I can easily go to, let's say, my search city view coordinator and then instantiate my view controller over there. It's like as simple as, let this, if it is my view controller, then I can just say search city view controller dot instantiate. That's gonna instantiate my view controller directly. It's not even going to ask me what is a type, because even type is defined. I don't need to say as search view controller, because that is using the type. It's giving me the right kind of type there itself. So it is of this specific type, search view controller. So that's done. Now I also will get the reference to the view model which I have defined. So this is one of the ways. If I can access the view model and then create that instance here itself. Let's something like search view model city, but I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm not going to expose that view model directly here. Where is it? Like, not going to expose it. I'm going to keep it as private to this view controller. Instead, I'm going to give a builder instance, which I'm going to go to this view presentable, and then I'm going to create a view model builder. This is some pattern I had used even in my Viper tutorials, where I was using a presentation, or there it was all presentation and presenter. So I was using something like a presenter builder there to do this. Instead, in a similar pattern I'm using even here, where I'm doing this instantiation of this view model using a builder called view model builder, which is going to accept an input of this specific type. Once we move it to a framework, we don't need to then pass this type anywhere. So until then, we are going to use this, and instead it's going to give me a type of search city view presentable. So I'm not actually giving a reference back of the real class, but a protocol here. That's what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna have an instance of this in my, this is where it creates my view model. So let me go to the view controller and then create the specific type called, that is what I'm going to expose. If it was in a framework, I would have made it as a public one, because it is internal to this whole project. I'm just keeping it as var, which is internal to this. So view model builder, I'm just calling it as view model builder. And then if you have followed any of my Viper projects, then you know where it is going to come and build it. Otherwise, it is going to happen when view did load is happening. So this is where the view model is going to get built. So I'm just going to say view model is going to build using the view model builder, which is going to accept input. At least in this case, input is, we have some input. So it is saying right now search text driver of type string is what it needs. Because if you go back to our input, this is what is used as an parameter to this closure, where you pass an input, it gives you a view model protocol type, which is the view the presentable type, search city view presentable. So it is expecting an input, and input in turn has a parameter within the tuple called search text of driver string. This is where it gets interesting. You go back here and then pass that search text. And what is this instance? How are you going to create that instance? It's pretty easy. You just have to say search text .rx .text, which is, if you look at it, it's a control property right now, but I need to transform it into a driver property, control property. So driver is nothing but which will always run in the main thread. It will always repeat, it will always replay the last value, and it's never going to error out. So that's why I'm going to use a driver element here. So I'm going to convert this into a driver element. So it can also accept an empty as well, or empty as driver. So this is what it is. So now I am able to instantiate my view model from, as soon as the view did load is happening, I already would have passed this view model builder. That's going to happen in a bit, where I'll be passing this closure when the whole coordinator is building that whole module of that view controller. So once that view builder, this specific closure is accessed, and once you call this input, you get the view model created. That's how this is going to work. It's pretty simple. The same pattern is going to get applied in each and every view controller which we are going to use. View model is going to get created when view read load is happening. In this case, you pass the input here, it gives you a view model. So that's where you're going to go back to our search city coordinator. View controllers is instantiated. Now the next step is I have the view model builder. The view model is totally gone now. I'm not exposing that. Instead I have the view model builder, and it is expecting me to give a closure back. So within the closure, what do I pass? If you go back to this is my view model builder closure, which is expecting an input, and it is going to create a view model. It is inheriting, it is implemented by search view model. So this is what I'm going to create there within this search view model. It is accepting an input. So $0 is going to be the input I'm going to pass, because that is what will be passed as a parameter. So I'm just going to say $0 here. That's a parameter. So I have created this closure here and passing it as a view model builder. And as soon as I accept a value which is happening here in the view controller, I'm accepting that $0 here, which is a search text and one empty. So this, as soon as I accept it, this view model gets created there. So this is not the place where the view model is getting created, but this is the place where I am passing the closure to create that view model. So don't get confused here. It's pretty simple, I'm hoping. So that's happening here. View model, view is created, view model association is happening. I'm passing the closure required to create that view model here, and that is now done. Now the next step is that I need to push this to a navigation or something. I don't have it yet. So what can I do? I need to accept a navigation, which might be happening from coming from somewhere else. So for that, accepting that, I'm gonna init this coordinator and then accept a navigation controller here, UI navigation. So import UIKit UI navigation controller. Let me just have a reference to that, where navigation controller UI navigation controller self.navigation controller is equal to navigation controller. Can I keep this as let in private? Let's see that. Just gonna do that. Let's see if that works. So I'm accepting a navigation controller from somewhere. That somewhere is going to happen in a while, but I already have an instance of search city coordinator. As soon as that gets instantiated, it will accept a UI navigation controller. So that's ready here. So now I can use it here. Navigation controller, I have the reference, and then I'm gonna push my view controller, which is this search view, which is the first view, animated true. That's happening here. This is all pushing now. Popping is coming, it's happening later. That's a totally different tutorial where it's more like a what do you call as a blank spot, which it needs to be handled in a different way. So we'll come to that later. This is all pushing and presenting right now. So this push is happening using the navigation controller. Push is happening. So start is actually launching your first screen. It's pushing to the navigation stack, but we are not yet there. We need to still do things. So at least we have right now something to start the first screen. Are we ready there? Are we there yet? Let's see. Yeah, so this is our search city coordinator. So where are we going to launch this at? It is going to happen at Scene Delegate, somewhere here. UI Scene Delegate option, connection options, where it is creating a scene instance here. This is where we're going to launch it from. So let's do that. So even before doing this, we need to have something which can handle this Windows scene, where we'll be creating, using the Windows scene, we'll be creating a window instance, which is here, which can handle that window instance and make things as root view controller and everything. For that, let's create something which will be handy later. Let's say if you want to have let's say a login functionality, where root view controller might be your login view, and once you're logged in, you might have to transition into a tab bar controller or something. At that point, this thing makes sense that you have something called as similar to base coordinator. We create something called as an app coordinator. This is more like a coordinator for the base app itself, which is going to handle your window stuff. So that is what I'm going to create now. Window coordinator. Again, that is also going to maybe I just need the UI kit here. Class app coordinator. That's again going to implement base coordinator. So even this is going to have all that start function and all. So this is where even here we are going to have a start function. Again, it's going to ask to override that. Yes, so that's overridden. And this is going to have an init, not the overridden init, but a custom init, where it is going to accept a window. And let's keep a reference of window even here. Private let window self.window equals window. So window instance is accepted here. Now we need to start something and start something. That something is our search city coordinator. That's what is going to get started in this start, and this is where we are going to set the root view controller and all that things. So let's do that. We already have the search city coordinator that is asking for search city coordinator. Where is my city coordinator? It is going to ask me for a navigation controller, so I need that now. So let's create that. Let's create it as a private let navigation controller, UI navigation controller. Simply just create a navigation controller. I'm just keeping it in this block because I need to customize things. So UI navigation controller, this just, if you just return it, it'll give you a navigation controller. Simply this. So I can pass this one. That's done. Now the next step is I already have the navigation controller here. Then I have passed it to the coordinator. That's the only thing which this coordinator needs. Now I can just say start this search city coordinator or start. What does it do? It just pops it to the navigation controller. So that means it is going to start this, launch the screen. But before that, we also have added something called as, within the base protocol, we have added something called as add and remove. So we need to use this add now so that we can retain that instance of search city coordinator within app coordinator. So now app coordinator is the base coordinator, or at least the parent coordinator, and this is the first child coordinator which we are going to add for the app coordinator. So let's do that. self.add, because this is inheriting from base coordinator, which in turn is inheriting coordinator. So we get access to the coordinators add function, and where we can just add this coordinator created, added as a child of app coordinator, started. This is enough to start the feature. But before that, because we have the window here, we need to set the root view controller, which in this case will be the navigation controller, which we have created here. Root view controller, navigation controller, window dot make key visible, make key and visible. Those things are done right here in app coordinator. So this is the basic case where you're directly launching the search city coordinator. That is anyway our use case. But if you have some complex use case, like you need to go through a login flow, then you need to show some agree this or something, and then those whole of that logic is going to go through this app coordinator itself, which more or less acts as the root of everything. So this is where it's going to go through. So for us it's simple, this start the search city coordinator through this. So now your app coordinator is ready. We need to do some customization for UIViewController, which we will do as soon as I show you how things are working. So my app coordinator is ready, my search city coordinator is ready. Maybe let's just see what's going on right now. Just launch it and see. So for that, let's go to the Scene Delegate. Scene Delegate is over here. We have things which can be done here. If Scene Delegate does not exist, it just returns here. So I'm just gonna say window scene so that I can use this window scene, and then I can just create an instance of window here. Window is already here. Then I can just say UI window. Now it can accept something called as window scene here. So I'm just going to pass that window scene. So this creates me the window instance. All that I need now is the app coordinator, pass the window self.window. And I just need to say start. So what does start do? Start is launching your search city coordinator. Add root view controller. All things are done here. So if you run it now, maybe it shows you how this new changes are going to happen, because we already removed these things. Now we removed this main, as well as removed this being the initial view controller. That thing also we removed. Where is that? Yeah, is initial view controller, that is also removed. All that we now have is whatever has to happen through Scene Delegate. This is where it's going to happen. So let's run and see what it shows us. Good, it's showing me this view. So let's do some customization before we wrap up this episode, the second episode, where we were just trying to see how coordinators are going to actually get these things working. So let's do that. So let me go back to my app coordinator where I have the navigation controller. I just need to modify it. Where is that? Okay, so navigation controller, let me access its navigation bar so that I can set its color and all. Navigation bar, navigation controller dot navigation bar, and navigation bar dot set background image. Just getting rid of some of the things like UI image. Like there will be some kind of a border applied at the bottom, which might make it look like not pretty in a sense. Metrics dot default, just keep it as default, and navigation. I'm just getting rid of lots of things here, which is making it look bad. So you'll just see those changes happening once I have these changes done. Navigation bar dot tint color, bar tint color. So I'm gonna keep that color. I already know that it's going to be this reddish color. I'm gonna move this to a color extension later, but like, I'm just keeping it as is right now. And then navigation bar dot tint color, it's going to be white color. And then text attributes, I don't like the custom text color right now, so I'm gonna apply a foreground and everything. I'm just gonna use whatever I have right now. Navigation color, text title attributes, title text attributes, I'm gonna keep it as Avenir medium as the font of size 28 and make it as a white color. That change being done. And then one more change, navigation bar dot is translucent, just set it to false. That's also done. So this is my navigation bar customization, which is going to make it look better. Let's run it and see. Yeah, see that top thing is all pretty now. And all that we need is the title here, which we can, maybe I can just have it within the view controller. Set the title as just gonna keep it just for the sake of showing. It's not going to be where it's going to happen, but I'm just going to keep it right now as airports. Run. Airports, title, text for entry. Maybe I'll get rid of these lines as well. So go back to my table view. Have editing separator is going to be none. It's going to solve that, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty neat, right? It's going to, it is getting closer to the look I want. At least I'm able to launch this using Scene Delegate with an app coordinator and a search city coordinator. So coordinators are already in place, just that it's not 100% working yet, because we are not handled the pop side of things. Let's say if I'm going to one screen to the other, if I pop it, then what's going to happen? Those things are not yet there. So those things, along with more getting the services ready, that's the next thing we are going to do. We need to load this table view with a service, and for that we need to launch it, get those data in place, get that populated into models, and then use that models to actually create the data source for this table view. And then whenever you're doing that search on the search city text field, that's when it's going to load the table view with the data source. So those things are coming up in the next episode. So stay watching all the episodes, stay subscribed. I'm back with the third episode in a bit. Until then, it's bye.